I'm here with Lisa Bronner from Dr. Bronner's Soaps. Lisa, thank you so much.
I'm very happy to be here, Deborah. Thanks for having me.
How are you guys doing there?
We're doing well, one day at a time.
Yeah, I know that's the most you can do, right? So listen, we only have a half an hour and I have 7,000 questions to ask you. But first,
Okay.
the history of Dr. Bronner's soaps for people that are just listening now is so amazing. The soaps are incredible. The more I've been reading about your company, I'm just obsessed with it now because everything you do is just so fantastic. And the origin of Dr. Bronner's soap is amazing. So I want you to just give us a couple minutes about telling us about that, because I know your ancestry is you're German Jews, and I find that stuff so fascinating. History is incredible. My background is also Jewish besides being Italian. My mom is Jewish, and you know, the Russians, my great grandmother came over from Russia and the whole thing. So could you just tell us a little bit about your grandfather, Emmanuel, who started Dr. Bronner, and just how I love how he took the name Heil off of Bronner, and just give us a little bit of a synopsis of it.
Yes, I am going to have to abbreviate it a bit because I think I could probably talk about the history for days. So my grandfather was born in Heilbronn, Germany in 1908, and he emigrated to America in 1929. So before there was the significant problems with the Nazi Party in Germany. And he came to America because he wanted to, well, a couple of reasons. First of all, he was trained as a soap maker. He was a master soap maker. His family had been making soap in Heilbronn already for 3 generations. His dad and uncles were very successful. They owned 3 different soap plants in Germany. And but my grandfather had a bit of a falling out with his father because he didn't just want to talk about soap and work in the family business. He already at the time was developing his own ideas about a broader perspective on the world. But my great-grandfather, his dad, was not interested in hearing it. So the reason he came to America was actually because he had a split with his dad and his uncles about this broader mindset. So he didn't come to America because he was fleeing the persecution from the state or anything like that. And in America, he worked as a chemical consultant. Various companies set them up with new soap making, manufacturing and such. He had several patents. But then he watched what happened in his homeland. He watched his family be destroyed. The soap factories were all confiscated and were all Aryanized. And his parents and all remaining family in Germany did perish in the concentration camps. And in addition to that, back here in America, things weren't actually going all that well for him in the 40s. He had married, he had 3 children. My dad was the youngest. But unfortunately, his wife was ill and she ended up passing away. And then following that, my grandfather was sharing these ideas, which sounded just as radical here in America as they did in Germany. This idea of let's not destroy each other. Let's recognize our similarities and our commonalities.
Yeah, it's all about peace and love. And
yes. Exactly, and he sounded kind of crazy. And unfortunately, he was institutionalized in Illinois after he was giving a talk at the University of Illinois, and they arrested him on the charge of speaking without a license. And unfortunately,
what year was that about?
This would have been about 1947. No, maybe a little earlier. Maybe
so fast forward to how from him being arrested, I read about that, to creating Dr. Bronner and the labels. The labels are incredible on Dr. Bronner. I just want to read the labels. If you've never seen them before, they have hundreds of different quotes and things. I'm just going to read one. I mean, each day like a bird, perfect itself first, to have courage and smile, my friend. Time, work hard, get done, then teach friend and enemy how to work and how to love. For God is love, uniting all one above in God's eternal, all one God faith. To dream that impossible dream. I mean, these kind of quotes are all over the labels. So how did he get from there to creating Dr. Bronner with the labels, so then we can get into all the other good stuff?
I'm sorry, as I told you, it's a really long story. So I'll skip a whole bunch. Escaped from the institution, made it to California. And so the label was always his passion. The uniting spaceship Earth, uniting mankind. And he found that people were a little bit more interested in the great soap he knew how to make rather than hearing his philosophy. And so that is why he started putting his philosophy on the soap label, so that when people bought this great soap that they were hearing about, they would take his words with them and read them at home. And so that's how both the soap and the label were born. They are completely intertwined.
So the soap was like his Bible in a way. It was his way of carrying his message.
It was the messenger. Yes, the label is the message. And he would never have taken his words off the label. You know, people would say, you know, it'd be like simpler if you just had a soap label. And he said, no.
That's awesome. So he was so ahead of his time. He was like a hippie, actually, right? If I could say.
And most of the time you make a label to sell a product. And in this case, he made a product to sell a label.
Right. Very cool. Okay, let's get on to soaps. Again, I mean, the history is so great. I want to talk to you another time just about that, because the story is amazing and he sounds amazing. But I did another video a couple of weeks ago on soaps. And again, there was so much research, and the more I learned, the more I felt I got confused, because there's ionic soaps and there's non-ionic soaps. And from what I've been learning about the virus, at first I thought you needed ionic soaps to kill viruses, but it seems that you don't. You could use ionic or non-ionic. Can you kind of explain what that is in layman's terms? And then also what I realized, and thankfully, is that you don't need Clorox or chlorine or these harsh chemicals like Lysol to kill germs, correct?
That's right. That's right. So there's a lot going on here. And I know I've never had people more interested in how soap works, which is great for me. I love talking about this stuff. And so the way that soaps are part of a broader category called surfactants. And the word surfactant means surface active agent. It means that it's a product that goes and it breaks the surface tension of a liquid, most commonly water, and allows the molecules to penetrate in. So the surface tension of water is a problem, actually, when it comes to cleaning, because it prevents the cleaner, the soap, from actually getting down to what you want to be clean. You know, surface tension is what makes belly flops hurt so much. And so soap is part of a group called surfactants. Detergents are also surfactants. Soaps and detergents share that in common. A soap is different from a detergent in that a soap is made from a natural fat. It's a one-step reaction that is either made from an animal fat, such as tallow or lanolin, tallow being beef, lanolin being sheep, or vegetable fat, such as palm oil, coconut oil, olive oil. Our soaps are all plant oils, coconut, olive, and palm being the primary oils in them. And detergents are much more complicated. They go through a much more lengthy reaction. You would never be able to make a detergent at home. You could make a soap at home. And so, but they both have this ability to penetrate water, kind of break it apart. And then they both have this magical molecule that's very strange in nature. It is a bipolar molecule, where one end of the molecule is positively charged and the other end is negatively charged. That's very strange. Most molecules are either positively charged or negatively charged. The negative end of the soap molecule is attracted to oils. So that's how it cleans. It latches onto oils, whereas water, as you know, is repelled by oils. So this end of the soap.
The way I explained it in the video is kind of like a sperm, right? You have the head and the tail, and the tail is the fatty.
Yeah.
Right.
The tail is what's attracted to the fat. So now, not all viruses are this way, but the one that is of most interest to us right now is the coronavirus. This particular virus happens to be surrounded by a lipid layer, and a lipid is a type of fat. So soap is attracted to that lipid layer, it latches onto it, and it does break it down.
So the lipid layer, to make it, could be like an envelope around it.
Yeah, an envelope is actually exactly what it's called. Now, not all viruses are surrounded by this envelope, and so soap does have differing impacts. Now, regardless of whether or not there's the lipid layer, the way soap actually works, and which is different from Clorox or disinfectants, as we say, is that soap grabs things and then rinses them away, because that positive side of the molecule is attracted to water, so the rinsing the water actually grabs the soap and what the soap's holding onto and pulls it away. This is how soap works on any surface. It removes. Clorox, bleach, Lysol, that kills, but it does not remove, and it doesn't even kill completely, which is why you're hearing so much about soap, 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 and not disinfectant, antibacterial products in this day. They want things removed.
Which is why you're hearing then just about people just washing their hands so much.
Exactly.
You're using soap to wash your hands and you're not going to use Clorox, which I'm sure some crazy people are using Clorox, but you don't need the Clorox and the Lysol because the soaps have the molecules in them that can, as you say, wash away the germs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And kill the germs. Do they kill the germs, did you say? Or it doesn't matter if they kill them, they just wash them away because nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter because it removes them, which is what we want, but it does, depending upon the structure of the germ, the bacteria or the virus, it may kill them. You really cannot classify them all together across the board and soap's impact with them. It does happen to kill the coronavirus.
From what I've been reading, the coronavirus is like a very weak virus because it has a very weak envelope.
Yes.
So it only lasts a couple days or 24 hours on a surface or in the air, whereas other viruses can last for months, correct?
Right. And it's very easy to kill. It's very easy to break it down.
Okay, so we concluded that we can use soap to get rid of the germs. So now let's talk about the different kinds of soap. Because again, from what I was reading and researching, it seemed that dish soap was the best soap, or not the best, but that's an ionic soap. And that would be a good soap to use in washing away the germs. But now after listening to you, maybe it's not dish soap. So having said that, is dish soap the best thing? If not, then there are various types of soap. You have Castile soap, you have a liquid and a bar Castile soap. So what is Castile soap? And then you have the biodegradable cleaner.
Right. So Castile Castile means it's a vegetable-based soap. Originally, Castile meant exclusively olive oil. Now, and olive oil is in our soaps, but it also means it's a vegetable-based soap. The structure of the soap molecule and how it cleans is actually the same regardless of whether it is a Castile or even an animal-based soap, although that's not what we have. The word soap is often misapplied. A lot of products that are called dish soap or whatever are actually detergents. That's fine. They still work the same way, but they are synthetic rather than a natural oil in there. And that's neither here nor there. As far as cleaning,
so that's the difference between a dish soap and a regular soap.
Most likely. I mean, as I said, I can't categorically say across all dishwashing products, but a lot of them are actually detergents instead of soaps. Okay. My son here is handing me one product I didn't have here. So this is our Dr. Bronner's Salsuds biodegradable cleaner. This is a detergent, and this is our Castile soap. This happens to be the eucalyptus.
Tell me again, in simple terms, what's the difference between the detergent and the soap?
Okay, it means the detergent molecule is created through a much lengthier reaction. It has to be, soap is a one-step reaction. You combine oil with an alkali, like sodium hydroxide, and you get soap. Whereas with a detergent, you've got many, many more steps, making honestly, a much stronger molecule, and the advantage to detergent over soap is that it doesn't react with hard water. The only time that's really relevant is if you're washing something shiny like your car. Around the house, these are completely interchangeable. So you can make a spray cleaner with either one of these and it will effectively clean all surfaces you can wash. If the surface can be washed, it will be equally well washed with each of these two.
But if you were washing your hands, you would be better off with the Castile soap because I assume it's gentler.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The Salsuds is actually a little bit more intense. It's great at grabbing oils, which is good when you're trying to clean your kitchen counter, but you don't really want it to grab every single oil that's in your skin. It's going to make it way too dry.
I just realized I know why when you use a detergent, it tells you if you're using hard water, you need to put something else in because the detergent won't react well with the hard water.
Well, you don't want the detergent.
That was the thing, the hard water.
Yeah, the hard water is the key. You don't want it to react, because what happens with soap and hard water is it causes those minerals that make water hard to fall out and to fall onto surfaces to make what we call soap scum. That's the layer of minerals in hard water. So people with hard water will notice more soap scum on their sinks and on their tubs than people with soft water.
Very interesting. Now I know why about soap scum, because I've always wondered, like, how does that happen?
Yeah, so if you had a water softener, that wouldn't happen. There are some trade-offs, though. I don't want to dive into water chemistry, but there are some trade-offs with having soft water. I personally prefer hard water, better for my skin and hair, actually.
And why? Just tell us why, now that you got me curious about that.
Sorry, I brought that up because it again goes back to charge. Our skin is differently charged than hard surfaces. And so while the soap scum is attracted to hard surfaces, it's not actually attracted to our body. So we're not going to end up with that on us. But the reverse is true with soft water, where you will not get the buildup on hard surfaces, but it makes it harder to rinse the soap off your body. And you will notice that with soft water, if you're washing your hands, it's like you'll rinse them and they'll still be soapy. And you rinse them and they'll still be soapy. And that's because soft water actually doesn't rinse us as well.
Okay, so one more question about that. So when you get water filters put into your home, like here in Florida, the water is really gross. So does that make your hard water soft or not?
A filter would not. A filter is just taking stuff out of the water. So like I have an RO filter, a reverse osmosis filter. That's just removing things from the water. A water softener is technically an exchanger. It's taking the minerals that are in hard water, which are magnesium and calcium, and swapping them for sodium and potassium. And so a water softener is different than a water filter. Water filters are fantastic. I love mine.
Okay. All right, good. Now let's go on to palm oil.
Gotcha.
Because you are, quite honestly, I've done so much research for all this. You are the only company we have found that, first of all, uses their palm oil, that you started a company, you have a sister company in Africa, correct?
Yes, in Ghana.
In Ghana, where you buy the palm oil from local families that grow it, and without disturbing the jungles and the environments and the orangutans and the elephants and so on and so forth, correct?
Yes, yes, it's really an amazing story. So there is a worldwide problem with palm oil. We know that, but the problem is not the oil itself. The problem is how it's being farmed, how it's being grown and processed and such. Most of the palm oil comes out of Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, that area, where a lot of clear cutting is happening, a lot of habitat loss is happening, with a terrible impact on the native wildlife. You mentioned the orangutans as well as the air. It's really detrimental to the soil. And of course, all of that has an impact on the people that are farming it. So we needed to do it differently, and partially to benefit all those different realms that I mentioned, but also to show people that it can be done differently. And so we started a sister company in Ghana that we call Surrender Palm. It's actually our second sister company, and we have a coconut oil company in Sri Lanka called Surrender Palm. So Surrender Palm was started in Ghana. It was actually revitalizing old farmland that already had acres and acres of palm trees planted there. We were working with smallholder farms. So no big corporate farms, all families that live there. And now we're working with hundreds and hundreds of farmers. And what we built was a mill. We don't actually own the farmland. We don't own the trees. We don't raise the palm ourselves, but we're giving the farmers a market. And in the meantime, we're also teaching them regenerative organic practices. And this is the cutting edge front line of certification and of sustainable farming and production. So in Ghana, we have training for the farmers. We're training them in healthy soil management, in the planting of cover crops, in what we call dynamic agroforestry, which is intercropping. This is how nature does it.
The existing, when you started the farms, there were the existing palm oil trees, correct? So weren't
Yes.
there habitats living in there already?
Well, weren't habitats living in where?
From what I'm understanding, you started the family farms. Did they start growing the trees there, or were they existing trees that they then cut down?
Yeah, these oil palm plantations are hundreds of are over 100 years old. Well, okay, maybe not that old, but they're decades old. These are family farms that have been
Right.
farming oil palms for generations.
So if they're cutting down the trees, isn't it the same issue where they're destroying the population of the animals there? And
There's
also,
actually there's no clear cutting happening, and this is where it's different. Instead of farming in a monoculture where you clear cut and you plant, you farm within.
everything down, just complete
Yeah.
cleaning.
Yeah,
Okay.
wiping it out. Instead of doing it that way, you're farming within nature, within the ecosystem. And not only does that prevent the habitat loss because you're growing, within the diversity that nature has provided, but you're also strengthening the trees and the soil because nature never grows in a monoculture. Nature always grows in diversity. And so this system that we have in Ghana, like you would be hard pressed to see the farms because they look like native land. They're in the native forestry. And so you wouldn't fly over and see the rows and rows of plantations and then see wild growth. It looks all the same. And that's the difference with what we're doing there.
So what you're doing is wonderful. And unfortunately, large corporations aren't following. I mean, palm oil is the most widely used vegetable oil in the world, right? And it's in over 50% of the products that are on store shelves.
Yep.
And it's a great oil to use, right? Because it's odorless, it's colorless, it
stable,
oxidize, right? So there's more of a shelf life.
Yes.
And it can just be used in everything from toothpaste to food. So from what I read is that there was a council that was developed, which is how I got to Dr. Bronners, is because it's called the Roundtable of Sustainable Palm Oil, or the RSPO, right? And it sounds great. Like, okay, now they're only using palm oil and it's sustainable and it's there's requirements and it's very stringent. But as I was reading more and more about it, it reminded me of responsible wool, which is, there is no such thing as responsible wool. It's a complete farce and just this great marketing term. So is RSPO the same thing? From what I know, it seems to be the same thing.
No, well, let me tell you what is the new thing. That you're right, that wasn't cutting it. And any of the rainforest alliances and such, that wasn't what we wanted it to be. It wasn't accomplishing what we wanted it to accomplish, and it was becoming a bit of a marketing gimmick. So what I was really excited to share with you today is this new certification. And when I tell you what this is about, I really hope it will start to push back against a lot of the cynicism that I honestly is justly deserved for a lot of the sustainable palm oil efforts. This is a new program, brand new, and it's called the Regenerative Organic Certified. I printed this out so that you could see what this new certification looks like. And you will really not see this yet on products widely because it's so new. This is not just about palm oil. This is about all farming. And the tagline of the regenerative organic movement is farm like the world depends upon it, because it does. And so the regenerative organic movement is stepping in where all of these other ways have failed. They've either failed on the animal welfare front or they've failed on the farmer welfare front. The regenerative organic is this gold standard that's going to brings into one standard both soil health, farmer welfare and labor welfare, and animal welfare.
Let me interrupt you so that people understand, because it's not only about the animals. You have the orangutans, the elephants, tons of animals. that are going extinct because of the cutting down of all of these beautiful jungles, but also the greenhouse gases, the emissions, the carbon footprints that the world is experiencing, because when they clear down these forests, all this soil is so carbon rich, correct? And it just
Yes.
goes right into the air, and it creates more and more pollution and toxicity. So, and the third layer is, of course, the human element, the workers. I mean, I'm sure fair trade is not something that's even considered within these within the palm oil industry. And children are also forced to work in horrible conditions in these parts of the world. There's absolutely no standards. So taking it from what you said, how will this new certification override all the others? Or is it just going to be in addition to it? And how do you
it really will be
corporations to, for them, it's really about the bottom line is the pocket, what it's going to cost them.
Right. Well, the bottom line really is consumer demand, because if consumers demand it and start buying products that are certified this, we're going to see manufacturers start to provide them, just as we saw with the rise of organic. As consumers demanded it, manufacturers and producers started to provide it. So that is where the real onus of responsibility lies, is with consumers to look for it, to demand it, and to vote with their dollars. So the regenerative organic certification is a multi-step. There's a bronze level, a silver level, and a gold level. The silver level is that 50% or more of the farm and the way things are produced meet all of the standards, and it's intense. I was looking at it, trying to remember them all, and it's intense. For soil health, it involves issues of tillage, like you were talking about, and not sending all of this carbon into the air.
Who started this? Who started this certification?
It was an alliance between Dr. Bronners, Patagonia, Rodale Institute. They brought a lot of the research and the science behind it, and now it's a branching out of many other like-minded companies. But initially, Fair World Project was bringing in the fair trade side to make sure that those standards were represented, as well as an animal welfare advocate. So it was a roundtable.
What I don't understand is how can Patagonia be involved in something like this? Patagonia, there is nothing ethical about Patagonia. I mean, there's nothing ethical. They're the ones who also were very involved with starting Responsible Wool because of all the museling that was going on in the sheep farms worldwide. They got busted with that. So it sounds so awesome, but then I hear Patagonia and I'm like, oh gosh, Patagonia. You know what I mean?
Well, we need to look at the steps that we're making, steps that we're making forward with these. And I can speak as far as what Dr. Bronners is doing. Yeah. Our palm oil production in Ghana has been certified to the silver standard. The gold is 100%, which of course is completely aspirational, and we're heading there. We're very near it, but the silver is what we're at right now with Dr. Bronners, with both our palm oil and our mint oil in India. And one point I left out is as far as habitat and native wildlife, there aren't orangutans or elephants in the region in Ghana, so we don't have that particular wildlife that we're making sure we maintain their habitat for. But of course, there are many other indigenous wildlife in Ghana that still has their home and are living amidst this new way of farming.
So Lisa, like, for example, I buy nothing with palm oil. The only thing with palm oil, the only product I buy with palm oil, I sound like an infomercial, is yours. Because I know that you're not hurting the environment, you're not hurting animals, and you're ethical. But there's no other company that I know of that's doing what you're doing, where you're growing your own oil palm trees. There's no other company that I know. So I say to people, don't buy things made with palm oil, because then you're just, like you say, consumer demand. So would I be correct saying that? Because if like Dr. Bronner, where you guys it does contain palm oil, but it's ethical.
If palm oil falls out of favor, and manufacturers start to respond to not buying it, they're going to replace it with another ingredient that is just as badly produced. So it's not just the ingredient. The ingredient is actually kind of the symptom of a greater problem of the way world farming has been done. We need to look at that root issue and see how we as consumers can be changing the course of things. So yes, you're right. This is brand new. Dr. Bronners is one of the first, and there aren't that many out there that are doing what we're doing. Yeah, I actually can't think of many, but
I can't, there's no other soap that we found that does what you're doing, not one. And
but everything was once new. Like organic was once, you know, not that organic is the end all and be all, it's really not, but it's become more part of the mainstream conversation, where once it was just this wacky fringe thing. And the same is going to happen here, that if we start putting forward not only that it's possible, but it's possible to do it and be profitable. I mean, if it's not profitable for a company, they're not going to do it. But we're showing that look, it can be, and consumers will respond to this if you pursue this very high level type of production. Yeah, it takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of time. But the end result is saving this world that we're living in and all of its inhabitants. And so it's okay to aim high. And we hope that others follow. We know they will.